what it sounds like. The Shama Israelu Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad, which means literally, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. This is the first commandment as given by God through Moses and as recorded in the Old Testament. When we come to Jesus, we are told in the Gospel of St. Mark that a learned man of the Jews, described as a scribe, a learned man, he comes to Jesus and he questions, said, Master, in the Hebrew language, it's a rabbi, a learned man, a priest. Master, what commandment is the first of all? And Jesus answers and says unto him, I'm quoting, in the Hebrew language, Shama Israelu Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad, which means, again, hear, Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. He repeated word for word what was given by Moses some 1300 years before, without the change of a dot. When we come to Muhammad, some 600 years after Jesus, he is confronted by a delegation of Christians. A deputation came from an area called Najran, outside Medina, and these Christians were questioning him with regards to theology and the teachings of Muhammad and the revelation that he had received. And during the course of the discussion, the spokesman for the Christian posed the question, O Muhammad, what is your concept of God? And Muhammad was made to say, as we believe, we Muslims believe, that Muhammad was inspired by God. He was made to utter words as they were put into his mouth. So he was made to say, as it is contained in the 112th chapter of the Holy Quran, Qul huwallahu ahad, say, he is God, the one and only. The last word. Ahad, ahad means one and only. Jesus said echad means one and only. Moses said echad, which means one and only. What is the difference between these three? Actually, it's the same word meaning the same thing. The Hebrew language, you say echad, Arabic is ahad. And if I write that on the board, you know, it's an amazing thing. If I write ahad, I want to make it echad, I just put a dot. That's all. That makes it ha into the kha. Ahad, echad. Meaning the one and the same thing, which means in the fundamentals of the teachings of Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, we say no change at all, as given by the prophets. Then in the teachings also we find a relationship, that each is an evolution of the previous teaching. For example, you see the children of Israel, they came out of the Egyptian bondage and they were moving into the Sinai Peninsula for 40 years, a wandering people, moving from oasis to oasis. And under those circumstances, the Jews were given a law, a very beautiful law, which was an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Quick justice. If you injured my eye, I injure yours. Move on, there's work to be done. You broke my tooth, I break yours. There's justice to be done. Move on, there's work to be done. There's no time for lengthy litigations. There's no time for putting a man in concentration camp or prison. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Beautiful law. A Jesus or a Muhammad couldn't have done anything better in the wilderness for these people. Suppose instead of Moses it was Jesus. What would he have given? I said the same. He couldn't have told them to turn the other cheek. See, because it was uncalled for there in the desert. If it was Muhammad instead of Moses, what would he have said? I say word for word the same. Because coming from the same God, we believe that God Almighty was inspiring Moses to give solution to the problems of his people. The names of that personality doesn't matter. Whatever the name, the teaching would have been the same according to the needs of the people. Adultery. Moses gave the law that the adulterer and the adulteress must be stoned to death. If it was Jesus, he would have done the same thing. If it was Muhammad, he would have done the same thing in the desert. Now, this, though it seems very harsh and cruel to us, this was the most merciful way of getting rid of an antisocial character, an adulterer. Because the system as given by God Almighty to these Jews was a system in which they could have had limited number of wives. Unlimited number of wives. You know, Solomon had 1,000 wives and concubines, and God didn't say one word against that. Almost every prophet mentioned in the Old Testament had more than one wife. David, Jacob, he married 2 sisters at the same time. Abraham, he had altogether 3 wives, and so on. Almost every prophet you name, he had more than one wife, and God didn't say one word against that system. And a system which allowed unlimited number of wives. Why must you go and interfere with somebody else's property? Can you see the logic of it? I mean, if 1 was not enough, you take number 2. If 2 is not enough, take 4. If 4 is not enough, take 40. Why do you have to go and despoil somebody else's property? That person is an antisocial character, and the best thing to do with him is kill him and make him an object lesson for others. See? So it's a very cruel thing. Stoning a person to death. You can imagine. It's a slow, painful death. And this was to be done in public. Not hidden away somewhere behind the walls, say in Victoria, what they call it, death row. No, where nobody knows what's going on. No, bring the guy to the marketplace. The whole community gathers and says, you see this adulterer and this adulteress, this is justice being meted out to them. Suppose we were there. You said, not for me. Would you like to go through that? So can you see now? I said, if Jesus or a Muhammad couldn't have done anything better in the wilderness. It was a beautiful law for a nomadic people. But laws have a tendency to change the characters of people over a period of time. Any law. Well, let's take our own law. We are living in a color-conscious country. Everything's based on color. And I can tell you my experience. For 40 years I've been talking to people. I love to talk. I love to talk. I love to share with people my thoughts and what little God has given me of my food. And let me tell you that I have invited hundreds of whites to my home. I invited Africans and coloreds and Indians, but I'm talking specifically about the whites. Hundreds of whites. Businessmen, learned men, priests, theologians, hundreds of them. And they come and enjoy my hospitality, they enjoy my food. Our food is good. The food that we cook. I tell you, the white man, he laps it up, he relishes it. The Afrikaner, he flogs it. And the colored or the African, nobody can resist the food that we offer. Am I right? You see, everybody loves our food. Maybe the way we put our spices and the way we cook, the aroma that comes from our pots, you just can't, irresistible. So the white man and the woman, they enjoy my food and they enjoy my talk. Because whatever I'm talking is from an angle which they might not have seen before. Because it's something novel to them. So they enjoy the talk and they enjoy the food. And they thank me profusely when they part. And subsequently when I meet them in the streets, they shake hands with me. How is Mr. Deedat? How's the family? Convey my regards to the missus. But no white man, by God I tell you, no white man in 40 years has invited me to his home for a cup of tea. I'm asking my European people that I can talk to. Look, I'm not trying to score any points against anybody. But I'm asking, don't you people know how to reciprocate? In your culture, in your civilization, is there no such thing as reciprocation? There is. There is. You do reciprocate, I know. Among yourselves, you do. You invite one another to your homes. But at the back of your mind, to invite